Hello, lovely viewers, lovely listeners, and if you're new, welcome for the first ever time to this, our fifth episode of whatever this is. It's a podcast that is, well, whatever it is, really. If you've seen us before, you'll know that I'm Paul, she's Victoria, and this time we have our first ever guest. We have Alex Durand, who is CEO of Saxon Air, and I suspect has a little idea of what's going to happen next, as we have. Alex, Victoria, hello, lovely to see you.
Hi.
Hello. Hi. Thank you.
So, I should explain, if you've not viewed this little podcast before, that Victoria and I don't really have proper jobs. Alex, you do have a job, so it is nice to actually have someone employed on the show. He looks doubtful. I mean, so
I
it's
thought I was
probably
still
worth,
looking.
it's still looking, my lord. It's worth filling in maybe a little bit of detail. So, Saxon Air, primarily business jet and helicopter operator, but you also have an FBO, you have an offshore operation, electric aviation, and a flight school. You've kind of got your fingers in quite a few little aviation pies there at Norwich Airport, haven't you?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good summary. Yeah, we're developing more of the infrastructure around the FBO and into careers and outreach as well.
Yeah, it's okay. We need to have a subsequent podcast where we talk about that in a bit more detail, I think, because your very succinct summary there doesn't really. I would say you're a pioneer in British aviation, possibly globally in terms of business aviation. So we'll talk about that a bit more. But last week, all three of us, at some point or another, were at Farnborough for the 2026 International Airshow. Like to talk about that a bit. I'll start with you, VMB. What's your top takeaway from Farnborough? What was great for you?
It was quite a lot, wasn't there? I mean, well,
It was.
first of all, driving into the event, I had to sort of get out of the way of an A350 1000, which was reversing into me as I drove in, which is quite interesting in my Golf. But then to see that thing get airborne, I
Mm,
mean, they made it look like a little citation, the way
yeah.
it was just extraordinary the way it took off and then completely just banked off. I mean, amazing. And then having a conversation with our lovely hosts at Airbus Corporate Helicopters, looking at them eye to eye when behind them was a typhoon
Yeah.
coming directly towards me. So I'm a sucker for fast jets. I love them. But I think as a show for me there's more and more electric aviation coming through, and that's obviously the message. And I think there's a lot of big manufacturers out there such as Boeing and Airbus looking at what the smaller people are doing and what their mistakes they're making or their
Mm,
learnings, as the automotive industry has done as well, and learning from that before they're putting their toe in the water. So
mm, mm.
yeah, that was my takeaway.
What have you got sitting behind you on your background there?
Oh yes, this is a static. This is potentially going to be the aircraft that takes over from the Typhoon and ultimately maybe the F-35 in the 2040s. And it is a stealth aircraft which has got short sides, pointy, sharp bits to
Yeah.
avoid radar. And I loved it. Didn't get the chance to go on it or in the simulator, but I loved it. I just love the design of it and the technical side of it and how it avoids radar and how you've got to keep developing that to avoid radar because radar is becoming more and more clever.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before I come over to you, Alex, when I was there very early on the Monday morning, like an hour and a half before the show opened, and that thing behind Victoria there, the Tempest or GCAP mock-up, there was a like a government delegation waiting to go look, lots of suits, lots of scrambled egg on their shoulders, you know. There was a team of guys with dusters and mop handles with cloths on, trying to get the dust off it. And it was this kind of Farnborough was just it was so hot and dusty, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the more they wiped, the more the dust landed, the more static there was, the more it got dusty. And there's these government officials there and these people talking multi-billion dollar defense contracts and guys with dusters going, "Oh, that dust ain't coming off, mate. There's not a lot we can do with this." It just tickled me. It was
It's
such
such a relatable problem. Don't you hate it when your stealth fighter's got dust all over it?
you do, you really, really do, yeah. And it was just so no one had thought about it until that moment. I just thought it was brilliant. But anyway, Alex, Farnborough for you. I think maybe you were only there a day or two, but what was your headline? What was your main takeaway?
Yeah, interesting. I think it was kind of the opposite end. It was the electric aviation,
Right.
and kind of unsurprisingly, having finished the show, having paraded around various versions of that, but I think seeing Vertical
Mm,
do their first public flight where they went from horizontal to vertical transition was, I think we've all got an element of skepticism about
Mm.
how that market is I was going to say land, but let's think something less punny. But to see it in action, you just cannot. It's just innovation in action. It was extraordinary. I think if you just stood, the announcer was great, partly because he made a big deal. You know, there's Concorde, there's the A380 debuting at Farnborough. It was really putting it a historical landmark moment to it, and maybe putting it straight after the F-35 was a deliberate contrast for noise profile. But just to sit there, look at it, and the thing I missed the Harrier doing its nod to the crowd. Well,
Yes.
basically, they did that, and I thought it was quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
And from coming 4 years ago when there were clay models of prototypes, 2 years ago when there was probably one actual prototype in
Mm.
a hall, to
Mm.
see two version electric aircraft doing full displays is quite an achievement.
Yeah, it was an impressive moment. I'm intrigued for Victoria and I when we go to these shows. For me, aviation; for her, automotive or yachts as well. We're always on the outside looking in because we're media people. We're always looking at the story, the background, what people are really saying, all that kind of stuff. But you're an aviation industry insider, and I've never been to a show with that kind of I'm part of this head on. So what do you go to a show like this for? You're not just going there to look at planes flying. I'm sure there's are meetings lined up, but what do you actually get out of it as an aviation person?
The meetings, the show's quite annoying because you can't hear for 2 hours, and
Yeah,
actually, your tightly packed day just runs to ruin
yeah,
because. So, could you just say that again 14
yeah,
times?
yeah,
Um, so, I generally am very last minute in planning. I mean, Farnborough is not traditionally a business aviation show, so I
no,
always pretend I'm not going to go, and then I think because it's so international,
mm,
the players in our industry are there. You've just got to navigate, and I think
mm,
finding your way around is actually it's as unglamorous as it gets. It's I've got to get to the Norfolk Inward Investment Team. I will turn right by the state of Ohio, underneath the missile system, next to the grommets for the engines,
yeah, yeah,
and then I was lost anyway. So, but
yeah,
I think that kind of it's a real reminder of the sheer breadth of the industry, and it all gets put into silos. And there's aerospace, and there's business aviation, and blah blah. Actually, it isn't. It literally overlaps. When you go there, and you can see, and that goes probably back to. It's really good to see the Friday with the sort of the
mm,
Pioneers Day, which is if you're a kid there, that is the industry. There is anything you want to
yeah,
take.
yeah. No, absolutely that. I was going to just talk about a few highlights of my own, and the wonderful Salem, our producer, made a video of me walking around Farnborough, looking like a bit of a Burke in my hat, to be fair. But I talked about some highlights in that, and I mentioned a couple of those. But there was something else that you've just made me think of, which I sat on the Airbus chalet watching the air display, having a chat with one of their senior execs, and she said she and her team walk all the halls and just briefly look at every single booth because she said it's easy to forget that they sit at the pinnacle of all this. They have big aeroplanes in their static, but there are people there working the show, sitting there in an unair conditioned booth for 5 days, and they make fasteners or washers or connectors. And without them, there wouldn't be VMB's A350. And she said it's really quite humbling to walk around and see how many people rely on Airbus, but also how Airbus relies on so many people for things you wouldn't even consider being part of an aeroplane. So I love that bigger picture of aviation involving so much more than an A350 or a Typhoon. I just think that's really important. It's important to get young people in there to see that scope of aviation, that it isn't just airplanes and helicopters. It's all the little bits and pieces and the people that go behind them. That's my little promotional
Yeah,
video
I
I've
think
done.
it's too big to explain. I think that's the good thing about
Yes.
it is you can
Mm.
only do that by walking the halls.
Yeah.
Once it's here, then you realise it is all interconnected.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely there. So, very quickly, if I may, I'll just mention a couple of aviation highlights because I'm a plane spotter at heart. So I'm wearing my Sherpa t-shirt here. I think you can probably just see that. So I don't know if you saw this in the static display. It's to me, it's a short Sherpa, but de Havilland Aircraft of Canada feel in the current geopolitical climate there is a space for a small airlift that can take off pretty much from anywhere, land short, all that kind of thing. And they've brought the Sherpa back and they were promoting it, and it's a lovely airplane. I've always liked it. They gave away T-shirts, which is even better. Um, but they're old. The Sherpas are old. They're saying, oh, if we get demand, we may build them again, but for the moment they're old. And I walked in the back, and it smelt like an old aeroplane. You know how only an old aeroplane can smell? I guess B&B cars are the same, aren't they? They have a smell.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what
Absolutely.
it is, but they have a smell. And it smelled like that, and it was just wonderful. That was a highlight for me. It was painted in this vicious paint
Mm.
Maybe
scheme
they
as
need the
well. That was
cleaning team.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Tempest team could get like the next job.
You're probably right. So that was a highlight for me. And the other thing was one of these electric airplanes, like you mentioned, it was in the show. It wasn't the vertical. It was, I'm going to read this to get this right, the Beta Alia CX300. And
Yeah.
it was these days we call them CTOL, conventional takeoff and landing, but we used to just call them aeroplanes. It's fully electric, and I was going to say it's a flying van. It's like a flying transit connect. It's like the van the post office uses when it comes to your house. It's a small aeroplane. It's kind of a staggered biplane, and Logan Air has said it's going to fly them on its Highlands and Islands route. Now, to me, that epitomizes electric aviation. That's what electric aviation should be. And let's come back to eVTOL, or at least the standard kind of eVTOL in 15 years when battery technology is caught up. I mean, what are your thoughts? Should electric aviation be flying off runways for the time being?
Yeah, I think that I really like that aircraft. I
Yeah,
think emerging from all this innovation is, I think everyone's trying to think everything is going to be the lottery winner. Out
yeah,
of it will come success, and that is it's a really clever one because yes, they will turn it into an eVTOL, very lots of common design stuff, really smart design. But right now, it's an electric aircraft that can do normal stuff,
yeah,
and I think the I'm slightly scratching my head, and I should know this. I haven't been in the industry too long. Is why it's not just a quick route certification. It's a single engine aircraft. We operate a single engine electric aircraft with two seats. It's one that's got four to five
yeah,
plus a payload.
yeah,
I just really don't see why it's so difficult to sort of gaze into the misty 2030s when there might be a few operating. I think they are targeting in a couple of years' time, maybe next year. But yeah, I think it's exactly it, and it's everyone everyone queues up anyone daring to come up with an innovation, something which is going to be new. It's like, well, you've got to solve everything in one aircraft.
mm,
Actually, what this will do is just stretch capabilities of electric aviation now and create the remote communities, the Logan Air idea, where these are going. They're traditionally connecting people that can't be connected, and
yeah,
you can do it pretty quickly.
yeah, yeah. I think I'm right to say that one of Logan Air's airports, one of the Highlands and Islands, what are they called? The Scottish airport system, anyway, up there in the Highlands and the Islands. One of those is kind of an environmental centre of experimentation. They're running hydrogen systems. They're trying to power the terminals without using electricity off the grid, all that kind of thing.
Cheap
And it fits,
manure and stuff,
yeah,
yeah.
it fits perfectly into that. Um, but I do wonder about that wider infrastructure. So I come to VMB for this. When electric cars were first appearing,
Mm.
and again, I've said this before on this podcast. I've not driven an electric car. I don't own one. I've never really even ridden in one. But I remember people talking about, well, you can't just pull up anywhere and charge it. You've got to be at the right charger. And to me, that seems utterly ridiculous when any petrol or diesel pump will fit any petrol or diesel car, that you need to find the right pump, if you like, to fill your car up. Um, Aviation, I feel, is at the point where it could go down that same silly route. So VMB, what did the automotive world do about, or not do about charging?
Many mistakes, many frustrations. Everybody downloaded Zap Maps to find out where they could take their Mini or their Golf or whatever it was to charge. But then invariably when they got there, there was somebody on that charger. So they then had to find where the next charger was. Oh, that one's broken, so I can't go to that. There's a
Mm,
lot of that going on. And the
mm,
frustration and really the disbelief that you physically had to stop and get out of your car or sit in your car, but you physically had to stop for about an hour
mm,
to charge your car, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous to do that.
mm,
A journey that should take a couple of hours is suddenly taking 3 or 4 hours. Nobody's got that time to do that.
mm,
So, and it's also, as I found when I was having to drive up and down to Devon quite a lot in 2021, and I was constantly having to stop between West Sussex and Devon to recharge. And on my own. I was having to do that at night because of work.
Mm.
And so I was sitting in Dorset in the middle of nowhere looking for a charger and then sitting by myself in the car, dark night, one lamppost, one light on kind of thing. It's pretty, so there's a long way to go. But I feel like the Nordic countries have been potentially leading, correct me if I'm wrong, but if they, I read a lot about them probably about 10 years ago, and they had the 2030 target to fly domestically electrically. They weren't going to have anything in their airspace that wasn't either, at worst, SAF, sustainable aviation fueled,
Yeah.
or electric.
Mm.
So is it because certainly on the sort of Swedish Norwegian side, there's a lot of little islands in the Middle East, there's little puddle jumping electric flights. That was maybe the way forward for them to test bed the infrastructure.
Mm. I think it's partly that. I think they have quite a pioneering spirit, especially in Norway,
Mm,
because their settlements tend to be quite isolated, quite separate.
yeah.
Individual settlements will be quite inventive, and I think they will talk to one another. So I'll come back to you, Alex. I'm thinking about your Velis Electro. You have a charging infrastructure there at Norwich. You have that carport with solar panels on the roof. And I know when I went flying, I love to say I went flying on sunshine because you genuinely, the aeroplane was plugged into the solar panels or the whatever that big grey box is underneath them, plugged in there, it charged up, we went flying, it came back, it got plugged back in and charged up for the next time. Um, so I get that if you want to fly the Velis to somewhere else, you need to be able to charge it there too. So you need the infrastructure there as well. And the same with this CX300 or anything else. Um, but is that so hard? Is it really so hard to be able to charge the airplane at all the airports you want to serve, and then go do it? Is that really the big barrier at the moment, do you think?
Um, I don't think it is a barrier
Mm,
because I think what we've done is very scalable.
yeah.
And I was disappointed, might be sound a bit negative, but the DFT announcement last week about their funding studies into, I think it was Bristow and Beta,
Mm,
and the Scottish Government looking at the electric infrastructure that's required is there's been quite a few people looking at that already. If you build it, they will come. No, you
mm,
actually need to create the demand first. And there was a session on Tuesday afternoon, which the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure had uh, arranged, which was
yeah.
about how to optimize electric aviation. It's around zero emissions, but it's primarily electric. And I'll probably be I'll probably be shot by somebody in Northern Europe, but if you extend Scandinavia to the Netherlands, they've kind of cracked life. It's just like, and
Mm,
everyone just kind of, well, that's too, let's do it the difficult way.
yeah.
So they are a long way ahead of where we are in the UK, but they are acknowledging it needs more collaboration.
Yeah.
But the difference being that it's rather than let's back some innovation and then grab something, it's what does the infrastructure need to look like and then work it backwards. So yes, you do need the infrastructure to prevent, the Victoria and her little single seat aircraft being acquired airfield, just a lamp and feeling vulnerable.
Yeah.
But essentially, you've got FBOs who already, it's like the old-fashioned, fuel pump attendant who
Mm,
will sort you out. You're used to a weight with fuel anyway, so re-energizing the aircraft. But it's actually, we have taken that, take a carport, put it on an apron.
mm,
Um, Use that. But I think the big opportunity is to turn them into community assets because what airfields have that your petrol station doesn't is a lot of land. So you
Yes.
can do something with that to create the energy. And then rather than just these noisy aircraft going around, you're creating an energy source for the local community to come and tap into. So one of the things we're looking at is a local network, other in-range airfields to put the same infrastructure, but put some car chargers and some plane chargers,
yeah.
and follow that logic. And it's looking at it more holistically than just I need to get some energy to go to my next destination.
Yeah. Um, I have noticed when I visited your operation that a lot of you spend a lot of time glancing at the app on your phone to see how much power you're generating. And people will suddenly say 95% at the moment.
Yeah, it's even sadder than that because we've now got a battery. So we used to do that, and
Like,
there's a line where you go into surplus, and we're kind of like, yes, at 11:32 we are now positive. But the battery is now how much is in the battery? Because you charge the battery for the overnight. So yeah, it's But yeah, it's great. And what we want to do is put that on the displays around the, get everyone addicted to it. Get the offshore workers, instead of Sky News, is watch our Sunshine app.
I did wonder if there was an equation of sort of work lost compared to app usage to see
Yeah,
if you were
there's an app for that. There's definitely some
there,
AI to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there must be, there must
a
be.
small electric shock to stop you looking at it, something like
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So essentially, if we can get charging infrastructure at the airports we need to serve with our electric aeroplanes, you reckon there's an opportunity there to benefit the community as well because you put in the charging infrastructure, you do it smartly, you're going to get some excess from that. So are then industry people panicking because they say, "Oh, it's an electric aeroplane. Oh, panic, panic, panic." If I look at your background there, which I know you've mentioned is from 2019, so you've gone back in time, but you have a helicopter and a business jet. They are both aircraft. They are very, very different things. They both fly. And you navigate them, you pilot them, all that. But in terms of how they work, they're very different. An electric aeroplane, I would say, is not as different to a jet as a helicopter is. It's it's fixed wing. It's just got a different motor, and you charge it differently. It's simpler to maintain. There's no liquid fuel running around. Is it really so much different to what you already do? It can't be.
No, I mean for us it's an evolution. It doesn't.
Mm,
It's not. Let's completely change our business. It's just a natural evolution. It's just because I'm too lazy to update my screensaver. But those aircraft, we're still operating them, and these
yeah.
other aircraft are starting to blend in around it. And at some point, if you believe the press, you're the press, aren't you? The 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 109 will be replaced by some kind of eVTOL. And probably, let's say hydrogen will replace, will augment the business jet. I don't think that will be the case. Or they're both running on SAF now. So,
Yeah.
a dilution is a SAF. So I think it is an evolution. I think people are, there's too much about this is a radical step change away. Yes, it's revolutionary, but it's accelerating evolution rather than, making everything redundant.
Yeah.
There's a day when they will be superseded, but that's not imminent, and they will, have a use in the meantime.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, aviation fuel is around for at least another 40 or 50 years. It has to be.
Is anybody using hydrogen? I read something on LinkedIn a while ago about a guy I know in Australia who reported on an internal domestic cargo operation who was trialing the use of hydrogen fuel cells to take small amounts of cargo between Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, etc., etc. Do we have anything like that going on in the UK?
So as far as I'm aware, there are experimental hydrogen fuel
Mm.
cell power plants flying variously. I think was there not a trial in Scotland
Yeah,
or the
there's
West
Zero
Coast?
Avia at Cranfield and Cotswold. I think it's
Yeah.
Mighty My World, but yeah,
Oh,
there's a sort of parallel universe where we're involved in some of the future flight forums, and they're talking about hydrogen at airports not being legislated for a minimum of 3 years due to just the way the air navigation order update goes.
mm,
But then there's experimental aircraft operating with two English airports and probably in Scotland as well, who are, it doesn't seem that difficult. Is if you've got the hydrogen on board the aircraft, then you can get a cage of hydrogen and lob a lob a hose airside and off you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's not that simple, but it's also not. You're not talking about fusion.
Mm.
No, no, quite. And you could,
Yeah.
if the physics is right, if the engineering is clever enough, use hydrogen as a direct fuel in a combustion engine. So you could run a jet engine directly off hydrogen. You don't need to do the hydrogen fuel cell part. But the issue, as I understand it with hydrogen, obviously it goes bang quite easily. But the big issue is storing it and moving it because the atoms are so tiny or the molecules are so tiny, they will pass through steel infrastructure. So you have to be very clever about how you move it and store it. Otherwise, it definitely does go bang quite easily. Um, but I think, well, V&B, you had a hydrogen car for a bit, didn't you? And loved
Did.
it.
I had a Hyundai Nexo, and that was amazing, a little SUV. And I had to refuel it up in Cobham, Alex. So I had to drive from sort of Chichester area to go out to Cobham to refuel it to get back home just in time to need fuel again to go. which was great. It was a win-win for everybody. Yeah, it was really fun. But the beauty of it was just pulling up, and it was clean. There's no oil, there was no grease, there's nothing. It was so quick, and you just plugged it in, and I think it was 70 quid
Mm.
to fill up the tank, and off I went, and it was brilliant. It just felt really good. And I know there's a super yacht called Breakthrough, a Fedship super yacht, which runs on hydrogen. And that is amazing. And that they have to clear the dock when that refuels. And there's only in the south of France, I think there is only one place it can refuel with
Mm.
hydrogen, and that is in Antibes. And they have to literally clear the dock because of all the safety concerns around all those little escapee fuel cells. Yeah,
Yeah.
quite interesting. But it's changing. Big vault
Mm.
fast.
Mm.
Didn't back to automotive, didn't they about 10, 15 years ago, they were merrily you were clearly driving around in a hydrogen car and there were others, I imagine, and you used to go to
Yeah.
the filling stations and there would be a weird pump that no one ever went to. And
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
if we sort of reverse engineered all the knowledge from that so we could never apply it to aviation, I mean it just
Yeah, I know. It's sort of sheepy, isn't it? People are sort of following in their droves, and the big guys are watching the smaller ones. Is that going to work for us? And let's see them make the mistakes first of all. We've got too much to lose. But I mean, I live on a farm, and all around here we've got hydrogen pumps on the farm for some of the machinery, and I
Mm.
know on some of the Bamford farms, I believe they're running on hydrogen as well. So it's out there. It's coming.
Yeah.
It's just slow.
Yeah. Am I right to think that in aviation, we keep seeing these government announcements of funding to develop infrastructure, but no one ever actually develops any infrastructure? It takes a company like Saxon Air to think, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
give it a go. We'll try. We'll put some solar panels in and a charger and get an electric plane, see how it works. And it needs people to actually do it
Yeah.
to make it
I'm
work.
slightly head scratching at these pots of money that are being found. I thought we didn't have any money as a country, and then they're
Mm.
sort of another version of a research summit. And I don't like to be negative because it's good to see investment in the future of aviation. But yeah, particularly the Scottish electric aviation infrastructure. So, well, we've just done a version of that here. Does anyone want to just
Mm.
get our notes?
Yeah.
It might save everyone a lot of time and trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And without being arrogant about it, because it's actually relatively simple. So I think it's being, you must, really get your strong glasses on and furrow your brow, really get your thinking cap on. It's actually, why don't you just go the simpler route? And
Mm.
yeah, I think there is a case for encouraging businesses to invest their own money because then it's going to last the course, or
Mm.
it will
Mm.
go through
Mm.
standard business success or failure,
Yeah.
rather than a study that sits on a shelf because you do the theory and then the commercial organisations say, "Nah, it's not going to work."
No. I mean, VMB and I have both seen how you operate your electric aeroplanes, and it is, I would say, disarmingly simple. At least it seems it from our point of view. It really isn't any different to if I turned up and you said, "Oh, let's go flying in a helicopter or whatever." The actual process is just you get in, you strap in, pre-flight checks, quick chat with the pilot, away you go. From my point of view, it wasn't any different. So I would hope that people were knocking on your door all the time saying, "Show us how you do that. We'd like to do that at our airport." But that's just not really happening, is it?
No, not at all. I've had interesting. I did have one call from somebody in the US, which is really interesting. Who was interested in our infrastructure, but then and it turned out that I shouldn't. I should say it's good for any occasion. He said we were based in Hurricane Alley. I went okay, maybe a sort of a wing, a tethered wing device for solar panels isn't the right solution.
That's not
That's
very
it. That's my only kind of lead.
Well, hopefully, from I don't know, 8 or 9 listeners of this podcast, at least one of them will turn up and knock on your door and say,
Yeah,
"Oi, show us your
please
solar panels. What's
get a
this app
brochure
you've
printed
got?"
and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
brilliant.
want to mention something else, if I may, about what's
Mm.
brilliant about Saxon is I love the bees. I love the bees. Saxon has the beehives, and the bees produce beautiful byproducts. They produce the most delicious honey I've ever eaten. Also, I have to say, the best rum on the planet and the best gin. And I'm just going to share that with you. And it's available through Gerald's store in
It
Norfolk, which
is.
is also the best department store ever. It's like walking into 1945. Not that I was around then, but the service is unbelievable. And you come away, I should have had a couple of bottles here, but oh, they've probably been drunk, but it's so delicious. It is the best. So if you want honey, rum, gin, it's the best.
Do you know, I can't think where we were going. We were driving through Norfolk recently. We were out near there's a an air base that or it was an air base. We always go past it and I was like, oh, this used to be an air base. My wife's like, shut up. Anyway, we were on this little tiny road, came around the corner, suddenly there was Gerald's farm shop sitting there. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh
Yeah.
Um,
yeah,
Leathering set.
yeah.
there we go. It was near Leathering Set. Yeah.
Mm.
Skullthorpe, that's the base. I always get very excited
Mm.
because that hosted spy missions just after the end of the Second World War. And anyway, that's a whole other podcast, I feel. And we are slightly running out of time. And I know, Alex, you've got a meeting to get to. So
Yeah.
let me sort of round up with VMB. I think there's a lot more to talk about from the Farnborough experience.
Yeah.
Maybe we should get onto a bit more of that subsequently. And Alex, maybe you would join me for a podcast where we really get into electric aviation, the pros and cons, and the silliness and the brilliance of the whole thing at some point in the near future. That would be absolutely great if you would
Love
do
to.
that. For now, though, I'm going to thank the wonderful Salem, our producer, and Eva Media for hosting us. And then I'm going to give my extreme thanks to Alex, who's joined us from 2019, and to Victoria, who's joined us from Farnborough, or so it seems.
2040 apparently.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yes, yes. And thanks to you out there for watching us, for tuning in. And I hope you'll join us next time. I hope you like what we're doing. And if you'd like us to do anything else, just let us know. But for now, from me, it's thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Thank you.
Alex.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.